C1. You are listening at FameTV.info. Mu Euro had never thought that she would meet Guemo City in such a manner one day. He was on the verge of death, so she decided to save him. In the years they had been apart, she had prayed in her heart for him to live a bad life. She had even cursed him to die, but now that he was lying there lifeless, she suddenly couldn't take her anger anymore. Today was the last day of his treatment. After today, he would no longer be in danger. Then, she would be able to safely return to the hollow country. He walked into the bedroom and put down the child in his arms. Then, he took off his hat and huge sunglasses, revealing a calm and indifferent face with a hint of sternness in the corner of his eyes. On closer look, her skin was very good without any adornment. Her appearance was just as picky as her eyes. It was impossible to tell that she was the mother of a 4-year-old child. She took off the hat and mask on Shilan's head and pinched her pink face. Then, she bent down and gently said, "Shilan, you should sit here obediently. I'll treat uncle and then we can leave." This was the last day of the day, so she had brought Hiram with her to meet this man she should call Daddy. Perhaps she would never have the chance to meet him again. She had wrapped them both so tightly, she did not want anyone to recognize them and cause unnecessary trouble. After all, they had already become strangers many years ago. "Mommy, hurry up and go back to your work, I will obediently follow you," the tender child's voice softly spoke, causing her heart to soften along with it. She carried Shilan to the sofa at the corner of the room and went to prepare the medicine. However, when she returned from making the medicine, she found that Shilan had somehow crawled onto the bed. She couldn't stop growling. "Hey, you can see Shilan inside. Get the hell down here." With this roar, the little girl on the bed pouted in grievance, her large eyes as bright as black grapes filled with tears. "Mommy, didn't you tell me about my lady every day? Then why are you still talking to me in such a loud voice? It's not like I can't hear you." Black lines immediately appeared on Mu Euro's face. A person who was only so tiny had already learned how to beat her in a roundabout way. Such a shrewd personality had really inherited someone. She walked over to comfort her in a low voice. All right, Princess Shilan, Mommy was wrong. Mommy shouldn't have spoken to you so loudly. Now, can you get out of bed? Mommy, since the bed is so big, I won't be pressing down on you, so I'll just sit here and watch. I won't disturb you." Little Shilan also came up with a stubborn temper, but she refused to come down. Mu Lien could only give up and allow her to lie there on her stomach with one hand holding her head as he observed the unconscious body on the bed. He had been wounded in the spine and had almost become paralyzed. None of the doctors dared to undergo this procedure, and even when the Dragon Gate's young master pointed a gun at their heads, no one took it. No one could bear the responsibility of paralyzing the Dragon Gate's second young master, because the injury was on his spine. He could only lie on the bed. She looked at his somewhat pale face, which was clearly defined by its cold and resolute profile, and an indescribable bitterness arose in her heart. Who said that a person can only love once in their life? Everything else is just love. He was her love, she thought, her disaster. In a trance, he heard little She Blue's clear and childish voice resounding in his ears, bringing back her train of thought that had drifted far away. "Mommy, I think this uncle is prettier than Papa Jean." Why? She had never thought that a day like this would come when someone as cold as her would be able to speak with such gentleness. Because Shilan thinks that his nose is very similar to Shilan's. The little guy poked someone on the bed with his little finger and said while shaking his head. Mu Wenwen's face was immediately filled with black lines. "Li Mylan, are you trying to flatter yourself that you're beautiful?" The little girl immediately protested in displeasure. Her big eyes were once again filled with tears. "Am I not beautiful? Mommy, am I not beautiful?" Good. You're beautiful. You're as beautiful as a fairy surpassing sure." She turned to get the gauze, however, a trace of sadness appeared in his heart. Shilan's nose had indeed inherited his. His high nose bridge was like a piece of art that had been meticulously carved. His face looked hard and strong, but on Shi Lan's small face, it gave off a mischievous feeling. Ah! Mommy, why did Uncle open his eyes? Ah! Shi Lan suddenly let out a small cry. What? Shocked, she turned around and looked at the pair of slightly opened eyes. The bottle in her hand fell to the ground as she stood there, trembling, unable to say a single word. That he shouldn't have woken up at this time. He should have woken up after she finished her treatment today. But what was this situation? Mommy, what's wrong with you? Little Shi Lan was immediately shocked by her appearance. She had never seen Mommy with such a frightening appearance before. At first, he felt that it was very noisy, but the more he heard it, the more he felt that the voice was familiar, just like the voice in his memory. That was why he desperately tried to overcome the dizziness that was pressing down on his mind, and strove to open his eyes. In a trance, he saw a slim figure standing there. He couldn't see her face, but that familiar feeling made him excited. He gasped heavily for air, desperately trying to open his eyes to see her. Die, he cried out with difficulty, and a voice kept shouting in his heart, it's her. But he couldn't see her clearly. Suddenly, a clear and melodious voice of a child sounded in his ears. Uncle, are you calling me Mommy? But my mother doesn't call her Dai. Father calls her Mu Zi. Shi Lan's clear voice woke Mu Wen up. She rushed forward and grabbed little Shi Lan and threw her on the carpet. Then, she quickly grabbed a needle to be used as an anesthetic, grabbed his arm, and stabbed down. She watched in horror as his black eyes gradually lost their color before finally closing. Only then did she let out a long sigh of relief. After randomly wrapping it up for him, she fled with Shi Lan in her arms. What was deeply engraved in her mind was the thick pain in his black eyes that he was unwilling to close. Listen to the full novel at FameTV.info, direct link in the description.